Well, today my mind is racing a mile a minute, and for some reason, I cannot focus. It's so unfortunate. I'm feeling anxious. My feet keep tapping on the floor as I lose my patience. They tell me, wait upon the Lord. I sat down in my chair, but then I had to get up. I keep on pacing back and forth while sipping caffeine from a cup. It didn't seem to help when I walked into the building. You see, I gotta keep this 9 to 5 for the sake of my children. Co-workers in my office always gossiping, talking about all the problems while we're teleconferencing. On top of that, my daughter's dating. Yeah, she's blossoming. That's why I'm wide awake in the man cave, feet on my ottoman. My grandpa had a stroke, living in Savannah. Life's a jigsaw, not a joke. Slipping on banana pills, it kills. I want to do the Lord's will, but I'm popping sleeping pills to chill while stressing over bills. Anybody ever been anxious before? Anybody ever been anxious? Okay, so do me a favor, turn to your neighbor, give him a fist bump, and say, get your mind right. No, you got to say it the right way. Give him a fist bump again and say, get your mind right. Very good, very, very good, very good. So, North Boulevard Youth Group, I got to tell you, I've been so impressed watching you guys. I wish I was a part of your youth group when I was younger. I went to a small church. It was like me and my siblings and a few others, and we never had a big youth group. And I want to let you guys know you are blessed to be a part of this youth group, and I think you guys know that. So can we give all of our parents a round of applause real quick? Everybody volunteering in the back. You guys are doing a phenomenal job. Thank you for that. So today I wanted to talk about anxiety, and I wanted to talk about depression today. And how we're going to start this conversation off is I want you to turn to your neighbor and take about 30 seconds. And do you guys know what a phobia is? Do you know what phobias are? Can you tell your neighbor maybe one or two things that you're afraid of that makes you scared? Okay, go ahead. Spiders, yeah, me too. Oh, yes, give me a fist bump for that. That's her too? Okay, very good. Okay, got you. What are you afraid of then? Okay, spiders, and you're afraid of heights. Oh, spiders too? Okay. That's a good one, dark. Okay, let me hear from you guys. Any phobias, anything that just kind of creeps you out a little bit, makes you a little scared? Yes, ma'am, what is a phobia of yours?
Clowns.
Clowns, oh my goodness. Anybody else here don't like clowns? They're weird, aren't they? Okay, very good. All right, let me hear some more. What else are you afraid of? Yes, ma'am.
Spiders.
What's that called? Arachnophobia? Okay, all right, very good. What are you afraid of? Yes.
The sea.
The sea. Like being underwater, the ocean. Very good. Yes, ma'am. What are you afraid of?
Heights.
Heights. Anybody else here afraid of heights? Okay. Let me hear a couple of more. Yes, ma'am.
Claustrophobic.
What's that?
Claustrophobic.
Claustrophobia. That's scared of being inside closed, tight spaces. Let me get one more on this side. Yes, sir. What are you afraid of?
Fear of holes.
Fear of holes. Is that a thing? That's really a thing? Fear of holes. Trypophobia? Is that what it's called? Oh, okay, got you. All right. We're all afraid of things, and the question is, what do you do when you're afraid of something? When you're afraid and you have anxiety? So today I want to talk about it real quick and figure out what we can't learn about this, okay? So yesterday what I taught you was the biopsychosocial spiritual model of wellness, how we find balance in our lives or how we find peace. Another word for peace is shalom. Everybody say shalom. Shalom, right? How do we find balance in our lives when we experience challenges. Okay, so last night we talked about how to stay cool physically because our body keeps score. When we're not doing well, sometimes our bodies will tell us. We get tired, we get cranky, we get exhausted, so forth and so on. And we learned last night by looking at the story of Saul that when you are out of balance and you let your ego get the best of you, sometimes that can mess you up. And Saul struggled with self-esteem, and he had poor coping mechanisms. Can anybody remember some of the negative coping mechanisms that we talked about yesterday? Anybody remember? Yes, ma'am. What was one of them?
Self-harm.
Self-harm. That's right. What was another one? What was another one? Yes, sir.
Excessive drinking.
Excessive drinking. And we said drinking of Monsters and what's some other energy drinks? Okay, very good, very good. What's another thing, negative coping mechanism? Yes, ma'am, you had your hand up?
Gambling.
Gambling. That's like the online games or something that you guys play. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
Drugs.
Drugs. Was there some more up there? Okay, let me go around this side. Do you remember one from yesterday? What was it?
Like getting mad at someone and beating them.
Very good. Aggressive behavior. There was one more, I think. Maybe one more. What was it? What was it, sir?
Smoking.
Very good. Smoking addiction. So these are all things. Was there anything else up there? I can't remember. Let's see. Isolation. Very, very good. I'm so proud of you guys. You've been paying attention. Okay, so today, what I wanted to talk about is how to stay cool mentally, because all of us go through mental challenges and mental hardships and difficulties, right? And if we don't keep our minds clear, some of the things that we encounter will get the best of us and will explode, and we won't have the ability to stay cool when we get into challenging circumstances, okay? So that's what we're going to talk about today, and we're going to look at the story of 1 Kings 19. Tonight, we're going to talk about staying cool socially. How do we stay cool in the midst of challenges with our peers and our friend groups when they try to influence us to do the wrong thing or to move in a direction that we shouldn't? And then finally, on Sunday, we're going to be talking about how to stay cool spiritually. So I'm going to start with the video clip, okay? Show of hands, how many of you have seen, is it Finding Nemo? Anybody seen Finding Nemo? Okay, all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a video clip, and I want you to observe, what was Nemo's dad's name? Anybody remember? Marlin. Okay, I want you to observe Marlin and observe Nemo and his friends. And what if I told you that Finding Nemo is a theological movie? And that there is a lot of mental health principles in this movie that we sometimes don't see when we're just watching the movie. So, I want to watch this movie and tell me what you deserve. We're going to watch a clip, okay? You guys ready for it? All right, here we go. Pay close attention.
Hey guys, wait up! Whoa. Saved your life! Oh, you guys made me eat! What's that? I know what that is. Oh, Sandy Plankin saw one. He said it was called, a butt. Wow, that's a pretty big butt. Oh, look at me! I'm gonna go touch the butt! Oh, yeah? Let's see you get closer. Okay. Beat that! Come on, Nemo, how far can you go? Oh, my dad says it's not safe.
Nemo! No!
Dad?
Oh, you're about to swim into open water.
No, I wasn't.
It's just a good thing I was here.
Dad,
If I hadn't shown up, I don't know.
He wasn't gonna go. Yeah, he was too afraid. No, I wasn't.
This does not concern you, kids. And you're lucky I don't tell your parents you were out there. You know you can't swim well.
I can swim fine, Dad, okay?
No, it's not okay. You shouldn't be anywhere near here. Okay, I was right. You know what? We'll start school in a year or two.
No, Dad! Just because you're scared of the ocean.
Clearly you're not ready, and you're not coming back here till you are. You think you can do these things, but you just can't, Nemo.
I hate you.
There's nothing to see. Gather, over there. Excuse me, is there anything I can do? I am a scientist, sir. Is there any problem?
You know, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt things. He isn't a good swimmer, and I just think it's a little too soon for him to be out here unsupervised.
Well, I can assure you he's quite safe with me.
Look, I'm sure he is. But you have a large class, and he can get lost, from sight if you're not looking. Now, I'm not saying you're not looking.
Oh my gosh! Nemo's swimming out the sea!
Nemo! What do you think you're doing? You're gonna get stuck out there, and I'm gonna have to get you before another fish does. Get back here! I said get back here now! Stop! You take one more move, mister. Don't you dare! If you put one fin on that boat, are you listening to me? Don't touch the boat. Nemo!
He touched the butt.
All right. So let's spend some time and let's try to diagnose the film a little bit, okay? What was Nemo going through at that moment? Just kind of mentally, where was he and what was going on in this video clip? Let's see if we can identify some things. Yes, ma'am.
Peer pressure.
Peer pressure, very good. So he had his little friends with him, and the little friends said, you can swim off into the deep water, and you don't have to worry about it. Do it, Nemo, do it, Nemo. And he gets peer pressured to go out there, okay? What else do you notice about the clip? Maybe something else that's going on mentally here. Any other observations? Yes.
He felt like lesser than them because he couldn't swim well, so he wanted to prove himself.
He wanted to prove himself. He felt lesser. What do we know about Nemo's fin? He had one smaller fin. Does anybody know what happened to Nemo? Why he had a smaller fin? Yes, sir. What happened to Nemo?
His egg cracked.
His egg cracked. Do you guys remember the beginning of the movie when the barracuda shows up and it eats the mom and it eats some of his brothers and sisters and the shell cracks and now he has a smaller fin? Now, what does that do to Nemo's dad? What's going on with Nemo's dad? Yes, ma'am.
It makes him overprotective.
It makes him overprotective. Does anybody have overprotective parents in here? Are you willing to raise your hand? Okay. If your parents are here, I'm so sorry, okay? But let's kind of think about what happened. Marlon was struggling with some PTSD. Do you know what PTSD is? Post-traumatic stress disorder, right? So he had some things that he was going through, and as a result of his PTSD, Marlon dealt with a lot of anxiety and fear and also depression. You didn't think about this when you were watching Nemo, huh? Now you have, okay. So he had some anxiety and depression, and as a result of Marlon's anxiety, he would project that anxiety onto Nemo. Do you remember if Nemo went to school, his dad would kind of say, hey, be careful when you go to school. Don't stay out too late. Don't do this. Don't do that. Do you know that a lot of times your very own parents have anxiety? And when your parents themselves have anxiety, they tend to be overprotective. The reason why I can say this is because I'm preaching to myself. I didn't want my daughter to do this. I didn't want my daughter to do that. And I wanted her to be in church. And I wanted her not to wear this and to function this way and that way. And I was so scared of what could happen to my daughter that I was often overprotective. And what that is parents projecting their anxiety onto children. And the reason why a lot of young people have anxiety is because their parents themselves have anxiety, okay? Now, what does that do to Nemo? What does that cause Nemo to do, right? Yes, let me hear from you.
Makes him want to do it more.
It makes him want to engage in risky behavior and to kind of push the limits to show others that he's not scared or fearful like his dad or mom is, right? Or dad is at this point, right? It makes Nemo want to push away, but also what it can do to Nemo is make him very fearful himself. So I don't know where you guys are. There are some of you here that have parents that have a lot of anxiety and tend to be overprotective. They do that because they love you. But what that causes us to do is to try to push the boundaries further. Push the boundaries further. And I see this a lot in church kids. They want to push the boundaries to show that I can do what I said I can do, right? I'm not afraid. And this is the challenge that we all face. I've faced it as well. And so this is a message not only for you guys, but for parents as well. We got to learn how to deal with our anxiety because we'll project it onto other people. Parents will project it on their children, and children will act out if they don't know how to deal with the pressure and the anxiety. Here's what I know, and then I'll move on. I know I'm preaching a little bit. Sometimes when we have that much anxiety placed on us because of our parents and they're overprotective, that messes us up. It makes us feel like we can't do anything right. And if we make one mistake, it's the end of the world, and the whole world is going to fall apart. And what that does is that produces anxiety in our own children. So the question is, what do we do about all of this, okay? So can I move to the next? There we go. So here is something that I wanted to hit on real quick. Yesterday, we talked about negative coping mechanisms. I want to give you some positive coping mechanisms when you're dealing with anxiety, depression, stress, worry, low self-esteem. There are some positive things that you can do, okay? So one of the things that we learned that actually produces good feelings and good thoughts is exercise. And that's what I love about what North Boulevard Youth Group does this weekend. You guys have been dancing. Those videos are wild, by the way. I've never seen those before, right? Like, you guys are exercising the whole time. You'll probably this afternoon run around the field, play basketball, do all kind of stuff. That is good for you and your anxiety and your mental health, and that's why retreats like this is important, okay? Proper diet. I did see last night that there was some vegetable tray. There was like some celery and some carrots. How many of you ate the celery and carrots and stayed away from the candy? Okay, 2. Very, very good, very good. Right? So proper diet is important, right? Number 3, mindfulness. Does anybody know what mindfulness is? Mindfulness is kind of just, I want to practice it with you, but you got to promise me you won't fall asleep, okay? So what I want you to do real quick, you can stop taking notes, is I want you to close your eyes. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. I'm going to do some mindfulness practice with you. And I want you to take a deep breath in through your nose, hold it, and let it out through your mouth. Deep breath in through your nose, hold it, and let it out through your mouth. And do that one more time. Deep breath in through your nose, hold it, and out through your mouth. And as you're doing that, I want you to think of your favorite place. What's your favorite vacation place, your favorite spot? And I want you to imagine yourself being there. Maybe it's the beach. Maybe it's Disneyland. Maybe it's at Grandma and Grandpa's house for Christmas. Where is that space? Where is that spot? Take a deep breath in through your nose, hold it, and out through your mouth. And when you're ready, open up your eyes, and you can come back to this space. So that is a little mindfulness practice that when we're dealing with anxiety, worry, and stress, we pay attention to our breath, and we calm ourselves down. What else? We socialize. It's good to get out with friends, and that's why a weekend like this is important. We sleep. How many of you slept amazingly last night? Okay, very fair. Parents, how many of you? No, let me, right? I know some of you guys were up until 3 last night, right? And sometimes, yeah, woo! Okay, very good, very good, all right? We need good sleep. One good thing that we do to kind of help us get out of our rut is we go serve other people. We live in gratitude. We take green time. Do you know what green time is? Yeah, it's when you put away your phones for a minute and you get out in nature. And then we talk it out. And all of these principles help us to flourish and thrive when we're dealing with anxiety, stress, and worry, okay? So I want to tell you about your generation, which you already know. I was talking to a college student one time, and my dissertation that I'm working on right now is the use of spirituality in fostering resiliency amongst young adults, right? Like, all it basically means is, how do we learn to become more resilient? I was talking to a student, and I said to this student, I don't think you're very resilient. Your generation is not very resilient. You complain about everything, and you always have problems, and you have accommodations at school for everything. Like, your generation is so weak, right? And this is honestly what you kind of hear from a lot of older people, don't you, right? Like, if you stub your toe, it's the end of the world. You can't do anything. And as I was talking to this student, she said, "Excuse me, Mr. Darden." She said, "Let me check you real quick." I said, "Go ahead and check me then with your bad self," right? And she says, "I think my generation is more resilient than your generation." And I said, "Oh, no, you didn't." And I said, "Tell me more. Why do you think that way?" And then she dropped an atomic bomb on me. And what she said is, "Mr. Darden, did your generation have to deal with mass shootings in school? How many of you here, by a show of hands, you have to do active shooter drills at your school, right? Look at that. When I was growing up, we didn't have that at all. All it was like a fire alarm. What do you do if there's a fire? Go out into the hallway and you guys have to do active shooter drills at your school. What happens when somebody crazy comes into your school and wants to shoot up the school? Do you think that might cause a little anxiety? Maybe, right? Like, yeah. So this student was like, "Did you have to deal with that?" I said, "No. My generation, we used to just like go outside and play with sticks and stuff." And she was like, "Yeah, we have to deal with active shooter drills." So compared to other generations, though, Generation Z has really low mental health. And the question is, why? You guys deal with active shooter drills. Let me ask you this, and this is a spicy question, and this may be a little hard. How many of you here know of someone who knew someone who committed suicide? Look at that. Look at that. Put your hands down. That's crazy. My generation, it wasn't like that, right? That's your generation. Number 3, you guys are worried about climate change and global warming. Can I keep it real with you? Like, wasn't it super hot this summer? It was ridiculously hot this summer, right? And it seems like more and more tragedies are occurring, right? Like fires everywhere. The climate is changing. What do we do about all this stuff? And this is what you guys think about. And honestly, the hurricanes and tornadoes have been getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And you guys are thinking about stuff like this, right? You guys think about the migrant families that are coming over here, and how do we deal with that? That's a problem that you guys think about. And then lastly, this is going to sound hard, but I'm going to say it. Sexual harassment and sexual assaults within Generation Z is through the roof. Why is that? Why is that? I'm going to tell you why it is. And I'm just going to keep it real with you this morning. Your generation has been exposed to so much filth online from the time you were babies. What I know, and I did a study on this, is that exposure to pornography for your generation happens around 9, 10, 11 years old. You can play on your phone, be looking up something, and something will pop up, and you're exposed to those things at a very early age. In my generation, we didn't even have phones. You couldn't look at any of this stuff growing up. And you better believe that probably messes with your mental health a little bit when these images and these things come your way at such an early age. So what I want to say to Generation Z is, you guys are resilient because you've had to battle all of that stuff. When my generation didn't have to do that at all. All we would do was play outside, and we knew to come home when the street lights came on, right? But your generation is a little different. So I want to kind of think about, how do we navigate these issues? Your generation also is so connected. You're globally connected. You have information at the tip of your fingers. And what we have done, your generation, is we have become experts in fields by looking up things online, right? You'll be like, "Oh no, I'm a little anxious. Let me look it up online. What does it say?" I now have generalized anxiety disorder, right? We do stuff like this. Do you know people will self-diagnose all the time, right? Oh no, I feel this way. I must have depression. And that's just a product of this generation and this culture. It's not your fault. That's just what happens today. We all become experts. And so what do we do with all of this stuff, right? So I want to look at a story today that talks about kind of anxiety and depression, and in my opinion, how we navigate it and what we do with it, okay? So I want to talk about anxiety and depression from the biblical story of Elijah, okay? So let me tell you, first of all, in order to understand why Elijah had anxiety and depression and struggled, is because he was being bullied. Anybody here ever been bullied? Will you go ahead and raise your hand? Yes, we have been bullied. Okay, very good. Not very good, excuse me, but that's not good. That's not good, but you get what I'm saying. So Jezebel was a bully. Who was Jezebel? Well, let me break down Jezebel real quick. Jezebel was the wife of King Ahab, and she instituted the worship of Baal and Asherah on a national scale. Baal was basically a god of weather. He was like the weather god, kind of like Thor, right? And Asherah was actually the god of fertility. So they used to have these idols all over the place. And Jezebel said, instead of worshiping Yahweh, I want you to worship Baal and Asherah, right? Number 3, she violently purged the prophets of God from Israel. She was a gangsta. She was a bully. If you belonged to God, she would murk you, okay? She would take you out. This is what she would do. And she's famous, if you didn't know, for painting her eyes or wearing makeup, right? And this is sometimes what you'll hear at church. That's why we don't want you to wear a lot of makeup. We don't want you to be like Jezebel, right? However you interpret that. But this is what she was famous for. She'd wear a lot of paint on her eyes to make her eyes look bigger, right? And then she would wear all this stuff on her hair, right? And she would adorn her head. And this was her. And she was an evil, mean woman. And then on top of that, she relentlessly persecuted Elijah to the point where he wanted to kill himself. She bullied him so bad that he was ready to take his own life. So, as the story continues on, we know that in 1 Kings chapter 18, a situation arises, right? Jezebel and Ahab were living in a time where it wasn't raining much. There was a big drought, big drought. And so God says, I'm going to allow it to rain. And what I want you to do, Elijah, is I want you to talk to Ahab, and I want you to round up 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Asherah, and we're gonna see whose God can make it rain, right? So they get this whole crowd together, and they get this animal, and I'm just going to read the text. It says, so Elijah said, I am the only prophet of the Lord here, but there are 450 prophets of Baal. So bring 2 bulls, let the prophets of Baal have one, let them kill it, cut it into pieces, and then put the meat on the wood, but don't start the fire. In every text that I've been sharing, or I will share, you're going to see fire written down in red, and it's for a reason, okay? I will do the same with the other bull, and I will not start the fire either. Prophets of Baal, pray to your God, and I'll pray to the Lord. Whichever God answers the prayer and starts the fire is the true God. So the prophets of Baal were calling on the Lord, send down this fire to start this sacrifice, and it wasn't happening, and Elijah was making fun of them. He was like, maybe your God is asleep. So they start cutting themselves with stones, praying that Baal would light this fire. It doesn't happen. And then Elijah prays, and a fire from heaven comes down and consumes the burnt offering. And it showed that God, Yahweh, God of Israel, is the one that's really in charge. And then he rounds up the prophets of Baal and has them all killed. Now, let me tell you about fire real quick. What does fire represent in the Bible? Whenever you see fire in Scripture, I'm challenging you, everyone in here, whenever you see fire, look at its context and its meaning. I think fire in the Bible represents several things. Fire is a powerful symbol in the Bible. It represents God's presence, power, cleansing, and transformation, right? So whenever you see fire, this is what you should be thinking about. Number 2, the Bible often uses fire as a symbol of God's wrath and a way to judge sin. Number 3, fire is a powerful symbol in the Bible associated with purifying judgment, and fire in the Bible represents a season of testing. So this is typically what we see when we see stories of fire in the Bible. When Abraham was getting ready to offer his son Isaac, he goes and he builds an area, an altar, and he's got a light of fire, and that's a season of testing for him. Moses, when he was called by God, there was a burning bush that was on fire. It was a test for him, right? So we have all these examples of fire. Fire represents a season of testing. And what I want to say to you this morning is some of you right now might be going through the fire. Maybe you've been going through some fire at your school because this bully won't let up and keeps messing with you. Maybe you're going through some fire at home. You're not getting along with your parents, and it's a very difficult situation for you. Maybe some of you guys are going through fire with your athletic teams. You got cut, or your coach put you on the bench, and you're having a hard time. Maybe you're going through some fire with a friend, or your boyfriend, or girlfriend. I would tell you that whenever fire shows up, it's a season of testing. And we got to learn how to stay cool in the midst of the fire. Okay? So what happens is Elijah gets really nervous. And I just want to read the text. The Bible says, King Ahab told Jezebel everything that Elijah did and how Elijah had killed all the prophets of Baal with the sword. So Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah and said, I swear by this time tomorrow, you will be just as dead as those prophets. If I don't succeed, may the gods do the same or worse to me. And when Elijah heard this, he was afraid. So he ran away to save his life. He took his servant with him, and they went to Beersheba in Judah. Then Elijah left his servant in Beersheba, and walked for a whole day in the desert. And he sat down under a bush, and he asked to die. He said, I have had enough. Lord, take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. This is called suicidal ideation. Elijah was in such a bad place in his life that all he wanted to do was just die. And sometimes this is what anxiety and depression makes us feel like. We're going through such a hard time that it would be better if we weren't alive. And this is what Elijah was experiencing. Now, I don't know you guys well this afternoon at all. I don't know what challenges and what fires you've been through in your life. I don't know if you have thought about suicide before, or if you've been so depressed that you can't see a way out, or you've been so anxious before that you don't know what to do. But today I want to let you know that there is a way out if you're struggling through some of this stuff. And let me tell you the way out. I think there's a couple of things that we can learn from this story, and then I'll be done. Okay, here's what I want you to take away. Anybody know who Eeyore is? You guys watch Winnie the Pooh? Okay. What is Eeyore like? What is he like? What's his personality? Yeah.
He's really moody.
He's really moody. What else?
Insanely depressed.
Insanely depressed, right? He walks around and he's like, oh, I guess it's never going to get any better. I guess I can never have anything nice. Woe is me, woe is me. And we have a lot of people walking around us like Eeyores. There might even be an Eeyore or two in here today, where you look at your life and you go, my life is so terrible. It's never going to get any better. It's terrible, terrible, terrible. Woe is me. But then there's also another character in Winnie the Pooh. And it's who? Tigger. And what's the characteristics of Tigger? Right? Does he ever have a bad day? Like, Tigger is always bouncing off the wall, jumping off the wall, laughing and joking and having a good time. But then there's a fearful character in Winnie the Pooh, too. Do you know who that is? Piglet, right? Piglet. Piglet is scared of everything, right? Psychology in Winnie the Pooh. It's amazing. Okay, so what do we learn from the story of Elijah? How did Elijah get out of his season of anxiety and depression? There was a couple of things that happened. When Elijah was sitting under that tree and he was thinking about taking his life, an angel comes up to him and taps him on the shoulder. He says, Elijah, get up, get up. And he tells Elijah to rest and to eat. And I think these are some principles that can help us when we're dealing with anxiety and depression. If you're going through anxiety and depression, one of the best things you can do is just rest. How many of you like taking a really good nap? Whoa, isn't it amazing, right? Like, oh my goodness. Have you ever had a really good nap where you woke up and your face was like crinkled and it was just, man, there's something about a good nap that makes us feel so much better, right? Some of us need a good rest. The other thing that the angel tells Elijah to do is to eat. To eat. Eat something good. And that'll make you feel. Anybody ever do the happy dance when you were getting ready to eat something good? It happens to me all the time, right? Like, there's something about good food that makes you just feel good, doesn't it, right? Like, so eat some good food every once in a while. And then what we see from Elijah, he was also out in nature. And that's why you're here at this retreat this weekend. There's something about being out in nature that makes us feel so good, right? Point number 2. The Bible also tells us, and what Elijah had to do, is he had to think about good things. We used to sing a song at church. It was called Count Your Blessings, right? Name them one by one. Count your many blessings. See what God has done. One of the ways that we can get out of a depressive funk is to think about what's going good in your life, right? When all is broken and all is messed up, you can start thinking positively. You can say, well, at least I have 2 arms and 2 legs, right? Yeah. At least I have a bed to sleep in, right? At least I have a good mom and dad. At least I have a few friends at school. At least I have some clothes, and at least I can eat. And when you start counting those small little blessings, it changes some things. Instead of walking around like an Eeyore, you can say, man, I'm so thankful for what I do have, even though I don't have much, right? And then lastly is this, and I want to end with this thought today. Recognize the angels in your life. There's a passage in Matthew chapter 18, verse number 10, where the children were coming to Jesus. And Jesus says, don't you discourage these babies, right? If you discourage children, it'd be better if a millstone were tied around your neck and you were drowned in the depths of the sea. And he says, their angels, Their, are always before them. You want me to tell you something? Yeah, I'm going to say it. I believe we have guardian angels watching out for us all the time. All the time. All the time. And I want you to pay attention to the angels that God has put in your life. Do you know who your angels are? Anybody? Let me give you one. You got a grandmama? Grandmama's an angel, isn't she? Can I get an amen? Right? Like, you got a mama? Yeah, mama's an angel, isn't she? Fellas, am I right about it? Amen, right? Like we have angels in our life, okay? And typically the angels that we have when we're going through anxiety and depression, they tap us on the shoulder and they say, hey, you going through it? You can get through it. I love you. I care about you. Keep your head up. Keep fighting. And we need to spend some time recognizing the angels that we have in our life. Sometimes it's a good friend. You ever have a friend like that? When you're going through something, you can turn to them and they're like, I love you. You can do it. Or fellas, we say, come on, bro, you got this, right? Girls are like, I love you. I don't know, maybe, right? Fellas, do you guys do that? I don't know. No, we just like, come on, bro, you can do it. Keep your chin up. Get back out there. Put some dirt on it, or whatever we say, right, like fellas. So we have angels in our lives. So here's your discussion questions as we get ready to break. I know this is a heavy topic today, but here's what I want you to talk about as you go off into your groups and you kind of process this together, okay? I want you to kind of think about it. What have you been anxious about as of late? For seniors, it might be like, oh no, I'm getting ready to graduate. Like, what is going to happen? I'm moving out. Some seniors are like, woo, I'm moving out. But anyway, some of you guys are like, what am I going to do with my life? Where am I going to college? How is this going to work out, right? What's been causing you anxiety in your life as of late? I want you to talk about that in your group. Number 2 is this. If you're willing to, share a time in your life when you were really depressed. Have you ever had a time in your life where you were just like super, super depressed? What was that about? What was that like? Why were you going through that? And then the third question is this. Who are the angels in your life? Who are the angels that you have in your life, right? That you look at and go, man, they have been there for me. They have been a blessing to me. I want you to talk about that. And who was present to help you during a really tough time in your life? I think talking about those individuals and bringing them up is actually a huge blessing. It helps us to count our blessings. So let me tell you my final story, and then I'll close. I was 17 years old. I had to join the army because I got in trouble. When I was 17, I was a preacher's kid, but I was the preacher's kid that used to push the limits, right? My dad would say, don't do that. I would do it anyway, right? So I got peer pressured at 17 to enter into a not very good business. And the business was theft. So I had some friends, and what I used to do to show them that I wasn't scared is we used to break into people's cars. I used to smash windows and break into people's cars. And then I graduated from that, and I started going into department stores and stealing things, right? So one day I went up to a jewelry counter, and I had a girlfriend at this time, and I saw a gold chain that I really liked. And I asked the lady behind the counter to let me see the gold chain. And she took it out, and she kind of turned around. And do you know what I did? I ran out of the store. Boom! But that day at the store, there was an undercover police officer. This was on a military base. And on military bases, they have police dogs. So as I'm running, the MP releases the German Shepherd. And I'm getting chased by a German Shepherd, and I have to climb a tree to get away from the dog, right? Then they call my dad. And my dad shows up, and he says, Jason, I'm so disappointed in you. I'll see you at home. I was like, what do you mean you'll see me at home? I can't get a ride home? The store was like 7 miles away from our house. And my dad left, and he made me walk all the way home. And as I'm walking home, I'm thinking about the fire that I'm about to receive on my backside, right? And I get home, and my dad looks at me, and he has some paperwork. He says, you're signing up for the army today. I said, no, Daddy. He said, shh, you're going to the army. So at 17, I joined the army. And I had this girl that I really liked. And I was going to marry this girl, right? At 17, I was so smitten. Love is an open door. Anyway, I love this girl. And one day I'm at basic training, and I call her up, and I'm getting ready to ask her to marry me. And I call her up, and I say, hey, boo, how you doing? She says, hey, boo. I said, I miss you. She said, I miss you too, but I got something to tell you. I said, what? She said, I'm starting to have feelings for another man. I said, what? I said, it better be for Jesus. Who is it? Right? And she says, I got to let you know, I'm falling in love with your best friend. So, my best friend's name was Curtis. And when I'm telling you, is your name Curtis? Anyway, and while I'm at basic training, she breaks up with me and starts dating my best friend, right? Eventually, they get engaged and they get married, right? When she told me she was dating my best friend, you gotta believe I was utterly depressed. I was heartbroken. I was crying I was in my army uniform on the phone. I did the ugly cry, right? I was so depressed. And then on top of that, I was anxious because I had to join the army at 17 and I had these drill sergeants yelling at me. And I remember I didn't know what to do. I had no idea. How am I going to make it? It was so depressing to me. And I didn't know where to turn. So what I did for the first time, even though I grew up as a church kid, what I did for the first time is I got down on my hands and my knees and I started praying. And I started reading my Bible every single day. And then my mama, my angel, called me. And she said, we know that all things will work together for the good, for those who love God and have been called according to his purpose. And my mom was my angel in that moment. And once I graduated from boot camp, I started school at Harding University. And in my freshman Bible class, the girl that I sat directly behind that I thought was cute, even though she was already engaged, that I thought was cute, would eventually become my wife, right? And what I want to, thank you. And what I want to tell you this morning is that if you're going through anxiety, depression, a hard time, if you turn to the Lord, he's got a plan for your life that is way better than anything you can ever imagine. Let's pray. Dear God, we thank you for this moment in time, and I specifically pray now for the students here that are going through hardships and difficulties, anxiety, depression, who are at their wits' end and don't know what to do. Lord, I pray that they would turn to you and they would find their comfort and their peace and their shalom in you, and that you would bless their lives, and that they would live a life that is worthy of the calling, and that you would take them to places that they never thought they would be. So I lift up these young people today. Bless them. Help us to be more like Jesus, and forgive us when we fall short. It's through Christ that we pray. Let us all say, amen.